Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Feminine Legacy Podcast. This is your host, Jackie Ma, and today I'm excited to bring on Dr. Kristy Vanacore, and she is a licensed psychologist, a modern day medicine woman, a mama, and many other things. And today we're just going to get into it and share our wisdom and our hearts. And thank you for joining, Kristy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you. Another
Me
awesome
too.
conscious conversation coming. I can feel it.
Oh, I love it. Loving conscious conversations.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, what I want to begin with is it's interesting lately. I've been like, do I want to start with questions? And because you're a mama and because of the work you're doing, I just want to lean in to your heart and just, what
Mhm.
does legacy mean to you? Like the
Yeah.
legacy of your family, the legacy of your work, like how does that touch you? And what does that feel like and mean for you?
Yeah. I love that question, and I love the whole concept of legacy. It was really powerful for me. It's been a powerful concept for me in the past few years, especially as I made the decision. Well, I say I made the decision, but I really answered the calling to write my memoir, to write my book. And when I really sat down and felt into that, I had clients saying the world is ready to hear your story, and storytelling being one of the primary medicines that I offer, right? And I say I offer, it's not mine to offer. It's the great offering, right? Um, I really had to sit with this, what is storytelling about? Why is it important? Why in the shamanic traditions is storytelling considered one of the four universal healing salves, right? Why is it that storytelling reconnects us with our essence and reconnects us with spirit? And in the course of that inquiry, this idea of legacy kept coming up for me. And it's a word that you hear from time to time, and I guess I just took for granted that I knew what it meant, right? And sitting down and reflecting from that perspective of storytelling, and from the perspective of me being in this world as a missionary, as a teacher, right? As a world server, and then being in the day-to-day role of mama, and earth mama, like
Yep.
holding that space, right? What does it really mean? What does that concept of legacy really mean? And a word that kept coming to me very early on in exploring that was the word imprint. Leaving this imprint, leaving this stamp on something, right? And I kept playing with that, and what that was really all about. And I look at how everything in my life, everything that I've experienced in this life has happened for me in order to be able to use it to teach others, right? And so it's that proverbial, like, I'm helping others and healing through the light of my own wounds. But what's that mechanism? This is the scientist in me that gets technical, right? But I think the mechanism of transmission, right? That's the legacy. It's how am I allowing what comes through me, right? What can I channel through me to offer in service of the world?
Mhm.
To offer for guidance to others to help them go back home to themselves, right? I'm doing that with my kids. I'm offering that with my clients. I'm offering that just by walking this world,
Yeah.
now that I've fully kind of integrated and, have fully walking, chosen to walk this path, right? So that legacy, it's like, okay, it's allowing all the wisdom to
Mhm.
move through me,
Yeah.
right? Embodying it, holding it, and then sending it through as a clear channel, and letting that be the imprint, letting that be the gem that gets passed on to all who come
Yeah.
after me, because it's for all who came before, it's for all who meet me now, it's for all who come after. So I really look at my journey that's been one of rewilding. I use this word rewilding. And I say all the time that my rewilding is the greatest legacy. It's the greatest gift and offering that I can pass on to all those who will come after me, including my children.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to show anybody how to do anything, right? I always say to people, like, I'm not, you don't have to do it my way. This isn't my journey. My journey is mine, right? But it's to guide you home to yours, to give you that path back to yourself so you can connect with your inner wisdom. And so that
Mm.
legacy is really that, I see it like a sacred shape, like a sacred geometry, that imprint that, kind of gets tattooed on every layer of one's being. And you carry that with you, and we just keep passing it down and offering and offering
Mm.
and offering. And that's the medicine.
It is so beautifully spoken. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a rich word and filled with so much, and it means so many different things to different people.
Yes.
It's so deeply ingrained in us being truly authentically us
Yeah.
and being able to
Yes.
spill over, like you said, that pouring over,
Yes.
which is so delicious. It's like
Yes.
everything is always giving, always receiving, and everybody's touched by everything that we do,
Right. It's sacred
everything that they do.
reciprocity.
Totally,
Yeah. Yeah.
totally.
It has to be, it's not what I'm giving to you. It's what I'm learning in the process of giving because of
Yeah,
what I'm receiving. So
yeah.
it's that continuous circle, it's the medicine wheel. It's that continuous circle of
Mhm.
remembering and forgetting.
Yeah, remembering and forgetting. Yeah, which I want to lean into with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so before we jumped on this call, we started to like kind of lean into what it means to embody and bring forth all of our essence, the archetypes of ourselves, all the ways in which we individually and collectively um, inherit our medicine, like how
Yes.
that drops in, how it downloads, which is different, as we know, for every soul. But there is a mechanism, as you said. And P.S., I love that word. In our
Yeah.
traditions, that word is used quite a bit. Um, because once you understand the mechanism, then you're able to navigate it.
Yeah.
So that's really beautiful. But yeah, this feeling of like in this world, what it's like for us to come into contact
Yeah.
with parts of ourselves, medicine parts of ourselves, and explore them and integrate them and remember and forget. So let's lean into that a little bit and like what
Yes.
that's been like for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of my shamanic teachers and mentors almost 2 decades ago now, when I really, really started on my journey. And I always laugh as I say that because
I know.
what a journey. It's
Yeah.
like, and just when you think it's coming to an end, you just veer off into this new path. It's this beautiful ongoing journey, right? It's like a lifelong vision quest.
Yeah.
Um, but early on into that particular phase of my journey, I had been at what I then considered to be the lowest point in my life, right? I I felt closer to death than I ever could have imagined humanly possible.
Yeah.
And I just felt so wrapped in darkness.
Hmm.
And, I really did not see a way out. And, at the time, right, it was ironic because I was studying psychology and I was, heading down the path of becoming a doctor of psychology and all that went along with that, while I was simultaneously struggling myself, and really feeling in need of help, right, and
Yeah.
guidance, and at some points not even knowing what I needed, and at some points saying, I don't need anything, I just need to die.
Hmm.
And um you know that time, it was such a tumultuous time, and yet there was something inside of me that knew, of course now I understand what that was, right? But at the time I didn't understand how there was this part of me that knew that although this absolutely sucked in
Mm,
every way, right?
yeah.
And the amount of pain and suffering that I was experiencing, was just, it felt insurmountable. There was this part of me that totally understood it and totally recognized that I just needed to stay the course because something was coming, right?
Mm,
And it was around that time that, spirit guided me into the arms, literally into the arms of my shamanic teacher. And one of the first things she said to me was, Kristi, life is a dance between remembering and forgetting.
mm,
And I sat across from her, snot crying, that
yep.
snotty
Yep.
crying grossness, right? Hair in a knot. I remember this just, completely dead, really feeling dead inside. And she's talking about this dance. And I'm like, I don't know what you are telling me right now. It's sort of like, I don't get this at all. But it really resonated. There was such strong resonance. And to be honest with you, it was the first spark of life. That resonance was the first spark of life I had felt in me since I was a child.
Mm,
Since I was this free spirited little girl before, that was all, domesticated out of me when I
yeah.
was this wild child singing and dancing and, with my hair down to here, and just doing my thing before, the domestication took my voice away. That's where I felt the spark. That spark had gone, but sitting there in her office and hearing about this dance between remembering and forgetting, it did something to me.
Mm,
And I said, whoa, there's something to this dance. I don't know what it is, but there's something to this dance.
yeah.
And through this healing journey, right? So I learned everything from, what darkness really was, what lightness means, all of this, right? And I was learning it. My journey was an interesting one, right? Because I was being trained, or now I say indoctrinated, in a system that was, Western medicine, traditional doctoral program. I was told to wear a white lab coat, make diagnoses, write prescriptions. None of that resonated, and I was a patient in that system saying, hey, this isn't working and this isn't helping. But yet saying to myself, well, in order to get out there and do it, what I know is going to be my way, I got to go through this. So it was so interesting learning this sort of scientific medical model while also then, being called back to my shamanic roots, right?
Mm,
And in the course of that, taking what I was learning to be science and recognizing that science and spirit is really one and the same,
yeah.
right? And that's not the message I was being given, but it was sort of what I kept hearing was, wait a minute, spirituality is not over here and this, science is this way. There is a marriage. There's this beautiful blend, right? And then reconnecting with my shamanic roots, recognizing, wait a second, you know, this ancient enduring wisdom is actually the foundation of everything that they're teaching me in
Mhm.
this school. So where's that, right? And all of this, although confused the hell out of my human brain, right? Spiritually, right? Energetically, everything in me was coming to life as I was trying to reconcile all these differences. And the phrase that kept coming up, it was like the metaphor, because it kept dancing in me, was life is a dance between remembering and forgetting. Right. So at one point, I swear I was going to make this concise, but I could just talk about it
No,
all
go, mama.
day. It just feels so good to, have these conscious conversations
Yeah,
with somebody who gets it,
yeah.
so thank you for
You're
that.
so welcome.
After so many years of not feeling understood, right? It
Yeah,
still feels so good to be held
yeah.
by someone who gets it. Anyway, so yeah, this dance of remembering and forgetting just really kept swirling in me. And at some point when I was really that point, that crossroads of understanding the intersection between science and spirituality, right? Understanding energy, right? That was, building into the whole thing. And really saying to myself, okay, I need to get to the bottom of why my patients are not healing and why I'm not healing. And then
Word.
in that, exploring, what does healing even mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right? What is health? What is wellness? Right? So asking all these questions. So what kept going was all of my questions. And at the same time, the people in my life telling me, you asked too many questions. You asked too many
Mm.
questions, right? And I thought, well, this Socratic inquiry process is the foundation of everything. And I'm just going with it because I know the answers are already alive in these questions,
Yeah.
right? So I just stayed there. And all of a sudden, one day, it was really this one day that led me to start to study ecology and animal and land conservation, right?
Awesome.
Like random at the time. I'm like, I don't know why I'm studying this, but okay. And I started to look at this group of researchers out in California who were trying to understand why once wild animals that had since been domesticated were becoming sick, really sick, physically ill, psychologically, sick. So behaviorally, these animals were acting completely out of character for them, right? They were becoming aggressive. They were becoming territorial, all of these things that were not seen in the wild. And they couldn't understand it. And land conservation is the same thing. We have these beautiful wild forests that now had human intervention and intrusion, and suddenly the flora was changing.
Yeah.
So this group of conservationists, this was out west, of course, and they said, there's something going on. And what really captivated me about their research initially was that they were asking the same questions about animals and plants that I was asking about people.
Wow.
Right? And I thought, okay, wait a second, and even as I'm telling you this story, I have chills everywhere because, that for me, the fact that we were asking the same questions was so important because, again, my shamanic roots that I had been domesticated out of as a child that were now becoming activated in me knew that we are no different than the animals and the plants,
Yeah.
that we are one. So it was no surprise then that I was asking the same question. But then the next question was, why is no one else asking
Asking
this
this question.
question?
Yep.
Right? Well, long story short, these researchers said, what would happen if we take these domesticated animals and we put them back into their wild habitat? And what would happen if we took these lands and we removed all human intrusion and just let them be wild?
Mm.
Well, lo and behold, makes me emotional actually.
It makes me emotional too.
All of these animals were suddenly cured. They were healed. The aggressive tendencies, the chronic illness for which no veterinarian, zoologist, any scientist or medical doctor could figure out, they were gone. They were gone. And I said, oh my gosh, they've been rewilded and humans need to do the same exact thing.
Mm.
And that's what led me down this path of rewilding myself first and foremost, so that I could then offer rewilding to others. And not only offering it to people, but offering it to the whole field of what was called mental health. And I put that in air quotes because I don't subscribe to that. It's not mental health, it's health. We are mind, body, spirit. We are one, connected to everything, right? So I thought, okay, I'm going to rewild this whole damn field because it needs it.
Yeah.
So as I went down that journey, there came that dance again, the remembering and the forgetting, because what I realized was that I was remembering. I was remembering my roots, right? I was rekindling my innate instinctual wisdom, right? My intuition. I was reclaiming my sovereignty as a self-healing being. That's what happened to those animals out there,
Yeah.
right? So I thought, okay, this is remembering. And all of a sudden I felt light. I felt something new in me being born. And all of a sudden a new offering. I was in the world offering this medicine to others. I was giving birth to something, right? Ironically, right at the same time, I was giving birth to my first son, you know? So this felt amazing. This felt great, right? This is the part of the dance I loved. And then all of a sudden, I give birth to my first son, and all hell seems to break loose.
Always.
Right? These kids have their way with us. I don't know. All hell breaks loose. And suddenly I feel dark again. And my body is breaking down physically. I have lupus and I have thyroid issues and I've got GI issues and I've got, you name it, right? I have it. And all of a sudden, anxiety is back like I hadn't suffered with in years and years. And depression is back. I should put these things in air quotes because that's where they belong. They're not, you know, they're indoctrinated concepts. But anyway, all of a sudden this comes back, and I'm like, wait a minute, what happened to the dance? Where's the light? I was dancing, right? And I went back to my teacher. And again, my teacher says to me, life is a dance of remembering and forgetting. And I'm like, would you stop this now? This is annoying me.
Just tell me.
Just tell me. What is this dance all about?
Yeah.
And she says, you'll have to trust me. Just keep dancing. Well, fast forward to somewhat fairly recently, actually, as I continued my rewilding journey, as I started offering this medicine for myself, for the world, right? Really teaching about what rewilding is really all about. And the definition I came up with, and it feels important to say it here, as it's going to relate to remembering and forgetting, is that rewilding is an emancipation. It's freeing ourselves from the domestication of tolerance, of apathy, fear, right? Indoctrination and conditioning, you know, dependency. So it's emancipating ourselves from that. Always makes me emotional. And instead shifting to a reclamation of our innate purpose and our passion and our courage and our wisdom and our boundless joy and unconditional love and potent inner medicine that is our capacity to heal ourselves, right? So that's what we're trying to reclaim. As I went through the years of really formulating that definition, I realized this is the remembering, this is the forgetting. This is part and parcel of what it means to remember and what it means to forget. It mirrors birth, it mirrors death. It's the medicine wheel, right? It's the entirety of all that is. And one is not good and the other is not bad, right? When I had that moment after giving birth to my son, and I thought, shit, why am I in the dark again? Why have I forgotten, right? Well, that's the necessary birth. That's the destruction that has to precede creation. That's the shedding that has to take place to up level, to move around, right? We have to descend time and time again in order to ascend, right? We have to break through the layers of the indoctrination and domestication, because guess what? It's not a one and done. It's not, well, I've broken down that barrier, right? We're talking about generations and generations and generations of, again, what I'm calling domestication. Some call it colonization. There's all these words for it. But for me, it's really what has encaged us. It's domestication, and it's layered. And it's layered. And you know what? And it took me long to realize this too, because once I realized that, I thought, oh, okay, so I just have to stop subscribing to all of this. Well, but how could we live in this modern world when it's around us all the time and it's
Yeah,
infiltrating the pores in our
it
skin,
is.
right? So this isn't about what I'm choosing to take in, it's what is coming in through the air that I breathe,
Hmm.
right? So what must I do with this, right? What is being asked of me, right? I am human, I'm in human form, right? So I'm being asked to walk this human path. I'm being asked to breathe this air, right? And I know there's going to be times when I have to adapt to it, right? It's survival of the fittest. I've got to figure out how to live in this world. And so at times I have to forget what I know,
Yeah.
right? To remember again, the two go hand in hand. It is that dance. And whoa, as all of that started to just reveal itself to me, it was it's so hard to even put into words this the magnitude of the paradigm shift within me on every level, right? And recognizing that every day we remember, every day we forget. Remembering is
Yeah.
necessary, forgetting is necessary. We could look at
Mm.
it and say remembering is the light and forgetting is the dark, but
Yeah.
in the dark there's always light, and in the light there's always the dark. So can we just show up, right, as these spiritual beings? And I was about to put spiritual in air quotes because of all of the this is a whole other path we could go
Yep.
down, but all of how watered down this has become, right? But the spiritual journey isn't shape shifting and leaving this dimension, it's showing up in
Yeah.
the day to day human experience that our soul chose to come in as, right? My soul chose to
Yeah.
come into this body. And when I'm trying to get the hell out of it and run away and escape and avoid, and distract myself with courses and classes and workbooks and projects and people, right? Because it's too much for me to feel what I feel, you know?
Yeah.
There's the work. There's the work. There's the delicate dance of learning. How do I remember who I am, right? How do I remember who I am? How do I show up every day just allowing things to be as they are, allowing
Hmm.
myself to remember and forget in any given moment, trusting that it is all part of that divine plan, you
It
know?
feels so forgiving. The word
Yes,
forgiving just comes in really, really eloquently. And like standing in that liminal space of between the worlds of like, it's this and it's that. And that
yes,
fluidity of that dance that you speak of with the dark and the light, and how its context is so nuanced and so filled with like woven intelligence that we cannot fathom it when we're in the depth of it, because we're moving through the landscapes of emotion and
yeah,
healing and regenerating, and our cells are, there's a lot of science that's coming in right now
yes,
inside of me. There's so much that's
love
that's
it.
that's birthing. And
Yeah,
I want to lean into something you said that touched me, that made me emotional for my own journey, which is when you spoke about rewilding
yeah,
um, as an emancipation.
yes.
I actually became an emancipated minor when I was pregnant with my son. I went to court to divorce my mother and become emancipated. And that was like a whole segue of a journey for me of claiming my own life, claiming my own womanhood, you know, yeah, releasing the distortions that had come through the family line, and at some level taking um, a stand, although that wasn't fully conscious for me in the way that it is today. It was
Yeah,
conscious that I was embarking on something that I needed to break ties with something that was not for me and for the next generation, to prepare
yeah,
to excel and bring these light lines to life. And yeah, so thank you
right.
for saying that.
Wow.
That
Yeah.
was
And thank you for
super.
sharing that with me. Yeah, that word, right? Emancipation
It's a
is
strong
such a
word.
strong word, right? It's like it's even more than freedom.
Yeah.
right? It's and that reclamation, right? Reclaiming who we are, um, who we came here to be, the
Yeah.
permission to truly embody all of the gifts and the magic and the wisdom and the medicine that were put here with, right?
Yeah.
Again, in service of, right, as an offering,
Yeah.
and really having the courage and the audacity, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting, I often say courage, but it's like to have the audacity to break that mold, right? It's like, and this is where I use that word domestication, because I picture this cage, and this is how it felt for me, of breaking through the iron gates, right? Like with
Yeah.
all of my might. But the truth is, when you're ready for it to happen, there's no force. It
Yeah.
naturally happens, right?
So
You're not
true.
needing force with force. The bars melt away, right? And so we can truly embody and step in, into who we were truly meant here to be, and living out that vision that our soul carried, that
Mhm.
was buried for so long under the armor, and it feels like
Absolutely.
such heavy armor, um, right?
It's,
And it's the journey of removing the armor,
yeah,
removing the layers.
absolutely. I also want to speak into the word domestication because, you know, first, I think that's a word that is really connected to women. Like
Mm,
we have like really that
yes,
word has been a strong word in our
yes,
female kingdom of humanity. It's something that we've watched through our mother's generation and our
sure.
grandmother's generation. And I also, it's softer for me a bit than the word colonization now, because now that word is so empowered and imbued with victimization.
Correct.
Even though
That's
they're,
why I don't use
even
it.
though they are both existentially victimized states, whether they're self-imposed or
Yeah.
indoctrinated,
Yeah.
it's a container of containment that
Yes.
is not allowing the soul to fully imbue its
Yep.
divine right to exist
Yes.
and express itself, right? But what's so
Yes.
interesting is how they all hold different vibrations and textures based on
Mhm.
how we've inherited them, again the
Sure.
conditioning of where we are, what we're swallowing in our air.
Yeah.
So yeah, so for right now I've been kind of like personally releasing the words of like colonization, and I'm kind of just tired of
Great.
the outwardly expression of rage towards other people.
Yes.
That I get that it's happening and this is a natural process, and however,
Right.
responsibility and accepting and doing the
Yeah.
inner work is like it's what we got to do.
It's what we have to do. And that's
Yeah.
exactly, it's funny. I was just telling a client this morning, she's new to me, and I was sort of introducing this rewilding work to her. And I said, one of the things that we're going to be doing together is looking at the quality of our words, right? Because each word that
Hmm.
we utter carries its own energetic frequency,
Absolutely.
right? And we know the power of that, right? So we've got to be so discerning about the language that we use. And so, yeah, that's why, as I've been working with this model for so long, really being careful about my word choice, right?
Yeah.
Not using words like colonization, not using words like the patriarchy,
Yeah,
not
me
using
too.
words like feminist, right? Because it has this whole energy to it that, like you said, it may be real. We know what's happening, right?
Yeah.
But the question needs to become, well, how am I going to allow this to be while also evolving and taking from it what I need to in order to grow and move forward, right? So that I'm not staying stuck under it, right?
Hmm.
So we have to be so careful about the language that we use. And so, yeah, coming
Agreed.
up with those words were so important for me.
Yeah.
Um, in
It's
terms of embodying it.
yeah. And I'm sure you'll agree that as we keep downloading, integrating more and more of who we are, more and more of our light, our language will continue to change. Right,
Correct.
because we'll see the nuances of the language we used before and we're like, "Oh,
Right.
actually that's loaded." And some things
Yeah,
are worth reclaiming and some things are like, "I actually don't need to participate at all anymore."
that's right.
I agree
And
with
there's the
you.
remembering and forgetting, right? There's another
Exactly.
application
Yep.
of it, right?
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah.
And
So
how
it really,
loaded.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that it shows the dynamic nature of it, right? And that's why I think
Mhm.
about it as it relates to the medicine wheel that's always turning,
Yeah.
right? And as with every go around, we up level more, we connect more with our
Yes.
deepest wisdom, and we're becoming more conscious, right? As our
Yeah.
consciousness expands and we're awake and alert and aware to what's happening around us, we make decisions. We really do make those
We
decisions. So
do.
it's dynamic.
It really is. It's super
Yeah.
powerful to so powerful as it pertains back to the dance again. How this dance with light and darkness and how we just keep opening and compressing.
Yes.
And yeah,
Yeah.
it's phenomenal. We're really, I mean, the human species is so incredible. We are
Absolutely.
so divine.
Ah, absolutely. And again, this is even that, right? In terms of remembering and forgetting, because we know this, we remember it, and then we
Yeah.
forget it,
Yep.
right? And sometimes there's a reason to, right? But unfortunately, again, we live in this world that um, benefits so much from us forgetting,
Forgetting.
right? Benefits from us not remembering who we are, not knowing how to heal ourselves, not knowing the epicness of what we are and what we
Yeah.
possess and where we came from and where we're going,
Yeah.
right? And we have to understand that, right? And that has its purpose. And this is why, again, I don't um, subscribe, I should say, can't think of the right word, but to some of these words, because it's not about bashing it. It's like, okay, I understand where this came from. I understand the why of how we got here. Do I
Yeah.
agree with it? Do I wish it were different? Yeah, but none of that
Yes.
matters.
Yeah.
Staying stuck in that creates more distraction,
Yeah.
right? And I know what I'm here to do. And so my job is to not give in to the distraction that actually encages me. See, people see it the other way around. It's like, oh, if I look out here and I look out here,
Yeah.
right, and I go to this and I go to that, I'm out of the cage. Oh no, that's where the cage is,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So it's seeing it through different lenses, that my job is to come in here, right, into pure presence and connecting with myself, because
Mhm.
I am connected to
To
all that is
everything.
truly,
Yeah.
right? So it's not getting distracted by these words and not getting distracted by, these quote unquote spiritual practitioners and healers that claim to have the answers for us, because we have got to learn how to stop outsourcing what we are supposed to be sourcing from within.
Which is so much a major part of the getting free and the liberation work, the domestication, because we have
Yes.
literally been bred from birth to outsource from our birth, from the way our mothers may have birthed, from the
Right.
medical industrialized complex. I mean, we know the food supply, everything that is
Yes.
around us.
Right.
And, even if we think about, I think it's said that what 80 or 85% of the planet and throughout history is sort of in the same archetypal mode, which is kind of in the think tank of the same belief systems and
Yes.
orchestrating in the same wave. And there are the very small percentage of us that are like here to bring ingenuity and to, be the truth and rebel from those systems and strengthen and come home to the truth,
Right.
which is really challenging
Yes. Yes.
to hold the
Yes.
line.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
big, big, big
Right.
medicine.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah. And sometimes, again, where we're most challenged, is the day to day,
Mhm.
right? It's the shit of being human,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's the
Yep,
kids who have to get to hockey practice and dinner's
yep.
not made, and I have a client, and oh, this bill has to get paid and
Paid,
it's
yep.
late. And it's in the mundane, the day to day, that we find all of our opportunities to practice this, right? It's
Mhm.
not when we go to a course or we
Yeah, or
go
when a
to
ceremony. Yeah.
ceremony. Yeah, it's the day to day, hopefully those ceremonies, give us some inkling of remembering,
Yeah.
but ultimately it's all about embodying it. Otherwise it's just disconnected, distracted knowledge in our heads.
Yeah.
And it's not embodied wisdom if it's not dropped into the body and we don't know how to apply it in the day to day, right? It's like
Yeah.
showing up in the trenches. This is where the real work takes place. Not in the
Absolutely.
sweat lodges.
Yep.
It's here, right here, in New York,
Yep.
in the winter, with all
Yep.
the stuff. Oh,
It's,
yeah.
yeah, it's really, really big. I want to lean into you with something around the field. So you were talking about
Mm,
being a psychologist, and we're watching. I think we touched on that briefly on our call. Um, so there's so much. We know that there is always the polarity. There's always a distortion in. There's a wide range of consciousness and information that's available. But if we look at like the medical model that we know, that it's not a concise model because it's very limited in its capacity, because it's only looking at very
mm,
skewed data and not looking at the person and the spirit. Um, and we also see that that field, and I'm personally seeing that field grow, like
mm,
science becoming a big boom right now, right? Because now
yep.
science is becoming a little bit more advanced
Mhm.
to a certain degree. And so there's a lot more trauma therapists, there's a lot more psychologists. It's like kind of all hands on deck for like the healing fields right now,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and there's also this like huge arising, I find, of medicine people or people being guided to return to natural ways of healing, shamanic paths, just all forms of healing
Right.
that are
Yeah.
coming in, and
Yeah.
how we just carry it's important, all of it, and how I know personally, like from my awakening process to all of the processes and the trainings I've had, it's
Mm,
like we need these little sparks to open us and activate us to take us to the next thing.
yeah.
And also, as you beautifully said, a lot of it is just noise. And we're taking
Yes.
our conditioned selves into the arena of spirituality and playing out that conditioning in a different
Yes.
circumstances with
Exactly.
different values.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Yeah. And that's what happens, right? It then becomes no different than the
Yeah.
Western model,
Yeah.
model that a lot of these people are, trying to debunk and get away from,
Yeah.
And I think, one of the important things, this is just coming up for me now,
Yeah.
is important to say related to this, is that um even people's decisions, well, let me back up a minute. So yes, I agree 100%, right, that there are these trends now towards these healing professions. Everybody wants to
Yeah.
be a healer, right?
Yeah.
And I should put that in air quotes too, right? Everybody wants
Yes.
to be a
Yeah.
healer. And I'll say now, although this is going to come into my answer too, that I put healer in air quotes because nobody heals anybody
Anybody.
else,
Yeah.
right? So if we're doing this work in integrity, right, which we should be,
Yeah.
then we know, we don't heal anybody else. I don't heal anybody who comes into this door. I don't heal them. I guide them back home to themselves so
For
they can
them to
access
heal.
their inner medicine and heal themselves, right?
Yeah.
Now, having said that, most people do not see it that way, right? In Western medicine, that Western model, doctors are given the God complex, right?
Yes.
Doctors heal their patients.
Yeah.
Doctors have the answers, right? We're taught, oh, I feel this, I feel that. Let me
Hmm.
seek out a doctor who can help me, and they're going to fix me with their pills and their protocols, right? And so, over time, that's created the domestication is that it's created a system of dependency
Yes.
where people are dependent on pills, practitioners, protocols, programs in order to heal. And again, this is still with people not even knowing what healing actually means. I'll
Yes.
come back
Hmm.
to that. But I believe that as more and more people are going towards this industry,
Yeah.
right? And I call it that for a reason. Ironically, it's the process of that is the metaphor for what's actually happening, where when people have become so dependent, right, on their doctor, on their pills, on their programs, that's the end all be all. That doctor, that pill, and that program now has status.
Yes.
It has an identity, right? As, oh, that person's a god, Dr. So-and-so saved my life,
Yeah.
that Prozac saved my life, that program changed my life. Their status, right? And what is this modern world so focused on? Status. Right?
Yeah.
That in order to have worth as a being on this planet, you better have status and power, right? And you better have an identity that shows that power and that status. You better have all the credentials that show that, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is, ironically, people are going more and more towards this status, wanting to have that complex, that God complex of I'm a healer for somebody else. But interestingly enough, in trying to heal somebody else, they're distracting from their own selves.
Absolutely.
Right? So when I have a mentorship for, I call it my mentorship for aspiring world servers.
Awesome.
And when people come to me wanting to be mentored, right? And this has been this actually, I never, like anything else here, I never intended to create this, right? This is what has been created in order for me, to be a channel for this. But as people through the years have seen what I'm doing and have recognized that there's an alternative way, they've come to me and said, hey, teach me. So I have psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, energy medicine practitioners, yoga teachers, business entrepreneurs, financial advisors who come to me and say, hey, I know there's a different way, and I see that what you're putting out there, you're talking about this concept of, what's heart-centered and soul-aligned, and there's something to that. Teach me, right?
Yeah.
And they come to me, and one of the first things they say is they come with their notebook, and it sort of reminds me of me back in the day. They come with their notebook and their glasses and their pen. And look, I loved being a student. Okay, I still do. I love to learn. It was my jam. However, it was the way that I channeled all of my anxiety and all of my trauma, right? It was the ultimate way of distracting from my body, right? Well, anyway, I see these people come in ready and they want books. Give me a workbook. Give me a book to read. Give me the reading list. Where's the syllabus? And I sit across from them right here in this room. And I say, put your book down. And they look at me crooked and very confused. Like, what do you mean put the book down? And I say, I'm not giving you a reading list. I'm not giving you a protocol. I'm not giving you a syllabus. I am going to help you find yourself. Because if you do not find your way back to yourself, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you don't have a damn thing to offer anybody else.
Yep.
And most of them, almost all of them, do not understand that initially, right? Because they are so with the blinders on, in that cage, in that indoctrination and domestication towards, I need the title, the degree. Are you going to certify me? They say, are you going to give me a certificate? Your courses should be New York State approved for continuing ed. And I say, I don't need any of that.
Yeah.
That's distraction.
It is. It's external validation. And it's, when you're talking about it, it's just this deep need to be good.
Correct. Because we forgot that the essence of who we are is magnificent.
Absolutely.
We forget the divine origin. We don't remember. And we were told, this is what we are told, and we buy into it because we are seeking, right? The truth is we're seeking to remember the magnificence and divinity of our being, right?
Absolutely.
So when they out there in this world tell us, hey, you're seeking and you're floundering, we have the answer. It's here in our program. It's here in our protocol. Go get this degree. Go get that degree. Buy my workbook. Take this, take that. And we say, oh, okay, this is going to help me remember. And all it's doing is keeping us distracted. It's just keeping us further and further away, and we don't know it. So guess what we do? We seek more
Yeah.
because it doesn't work, because the model is set up to fail. The model is set up for us to never feel good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I have people sitting on my couch who say to me, I've been in talk therapy for
Oh
25
my God,
years
I know.
because I haven't felt good enough, and I carry this wound of not enoughness, and I don't know how to get rid of it, and they beat themselves up. And I say,
Yeah.
look, you're living in a world that every day in the air you breathe is infiltrating you with the message that you're not good enough. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
It's not your fault. But the answer isn't out here.
Yep.
It's here. So what I'm going to do that's different than anybody else you've ever worked with, and I will bet on that,
Mm-hmm.
is that I am not going to heal you. I'm not going to fix you. I'm not going to give you protocols. I'm not going to give you homework. I'm not going to ask you to buy my workbooks. I'm going to ask you to sit with me, and I am going to light the way to show you back home to yourself. I'm going to
Yeah.
show you how to come back to give yourself what you've been deprived of for so long: presence, light, right?
Yep.
Play, breath, like
Mm-hmm.
like the foundation. When I looked at those animals, again, the tears come, and they're deprived of their basic
Yeah.
breath, sunlight, right?
Yep.
And nobody tells us as humans, right? We think, oh, get some sunlight. It sounds like a fun thing to do. Nobody teaches us that light is how our mitochondria are coded. The powerhouse of our
Absolutely.
cells come from the electromagnetic field. This is science. This isn't spiritual woo-woo bullshit,
Nope.
right? So this is where I say to people here, you want to learn to meditate? No problem. Although I don't even use that word meditation anymore. That's another one on my outlawed list for a variety of reasons. It's not
Okay.
about meditation. Sit down, get quiet, come into presence, allow things to be as they are, come back to neutrality, come back to yourself, feel your feelings, right? So I'm going to teach you that. But I'm also, you want the science? I'm going to give you the science. I'm going to give you every quantum physics fact you ever asked for. The ones you never even thought you needed to ask for, I'm going to tell you. You want
Yeah.
to know why you need to get in the light? Because this is how your hormones are balanced. This is how
Yeah.
your mitochondria are coded. This is how we're circadian beings. Boom, 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 right? And they don't want you to know that. They want to keep
Yeah.
you deprived of all of these things so that you keep seeking outside all that's already in you. So yeah, I'll mentor you. I'll help you to be a world server, but I'm going to do it in a way that you never saw coming. And
Yeah.
it's going to start with you. Because if you don't show up for yourself and you don't embody all of you and you don't go into your own trenches, you cannot take anybody deeper than you're willing to go yourself,
Yeah.
you know? So it's
Absolutely.
different. It's got to start here. And all of these people are running around after the degrees and the titles and the credentials, and they're not doing the work. They're not showing up in integrity. They're just more and more
Yeah.
distracted.
Yeah. I feel a lot of ways about that. And yeah, it's interesting for me personally, my path, I never went an academic path. For me,
Yeah.
it was straight spirit.
Yeah.
And because of how I've been born into that, it requires a great deal of like deepening of trust like crazy, because everybody
Yes.
around me, especially even now in our I want to be careful how I want to language that, but as facilitators, as women walking the paths of remembering and reclaiming, how this power is how it needs to be held and nurtured and cared for in such a profound way. And
Sure.
I have personally been like, oh, I need to take this or take this next training. And my spirit is like, no, bitch.
No.
And
Yeah.
it gets shut down so fast. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, and I'm like, okay, who in me wants to take that? Who
Yes.
is who is the voice that wants to do that thing?
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
like dropping down again into that state of like,
Yeah.
What is the truth? How do we bring the miracles of the emanations of the power of the light that we are, and
Mhm.
and be able to hold and anchor that? And PS, I do love to see, I think it's so honoring that so many people do go a traditional path. Like, I see so many psychologists, psychotherapists that are like moving out of that terrain and moving into
Yes.
shamanic work.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so it's really, really interesting to see how, like, yeah, how our souls need to be rigged up to do the thing that we've come to do,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
who we're going to serve in that way. And it will be different, right? Our people, our women will be different from one another's,
That's
just
right.
on the trajectory of our own souls and our own past, like the way
Yeah.
in which we took to get there.
Right, right. Absolutely. I'm really honoring our paths for
Yeah.
ourselves and honoring it in each
Yeah.
other. You know,
Yeah.
I have one of my students in my mentorship program is a psychiatrist. She's finishing her residency. And when she came to me, she had such shame. And she felt ashamed of the fact that she had started out in the traditional route,
Mm.
you know, because her eyes have been opened to this other way, right? And I said to her, no, there's no shame here, right? This is, you
Yeah.
know, life is experience, right? This is the
Yeah.
curriculum that our soul needs to evolve. So that's the path you were supposed to take, you know, in order to get where you're going. So, but the shaming, it's like, in a way, it's like, you know, I also have clients who come. I have a woman who's an energy medicine practitioner, and she's ashamed because she doesn't have the PhD.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, again, all the more evidence that our culture is set up to shame us no matter what we
Totally.
do.
Hmm.
Right. I had
Yeah.
moments where I thought, oh my gosh, you know, and and it's funny, sometimes this happens when I get my student loan bill in the mail, and I'm like, oh, you mean I could have avoided
It's
hundreds
all
of
together.
thousands of dollars
Yep.
in tuition if I had just trusted my own damn self?
Yeah.
Oh, you know, but
Yes.
it's hard not to fall down that path, you know, of saying, wait, you know, and interestingly, when I published my book, another example of how even for me the shame manifested. When I went to publish my book, I asked my publisher, you know, and she sent me the cover, a draft of the cover.
Yeah.
And I immediately looked at it and I said, oh, no, 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 this has to go. And I loved the picture. I loved everything about it, except my name. And I sent her a message and I said, hey, we have a problem with the cover. My name has to be changed. And she said, wait, have I been spelling it wrong? Do you have a different name? And I said, no, the credentials need to go. She said,
Mm.
what? And I said, well, yeah. I said, you put my doctoral degree right on the front cover, and throughout the back, you call me doctor this and doctor that. I want all that out.
Good for you.
But she said, Kristi, I want you to think about why you want that.
Hmm.
And I said, okay. And I did. And I sat with it. And at first I said, well, no, it has to go because I'm, you know, I'm no better than anyone. I don't want to hide behind titles and
Yeah.
credentials, right? And then as I really sat with it, all of this
Mm.
shame started coming up in me about how I used academia as a defense mechanism for so long,
Yeah.
right? At a time when I didn't know better. And
Yeah.
I thought, wow, all this from a book cover, right? And I realized there was more work to do around these wounds that I
Yeah.
had to give myself, to love myself through that, right? And instead of seeing it as bad, to recognize it like I did what I had to do.
You did, and
Right?
worked hard to do it.
And I worked damn hard to do
Yeah,
it.
totally.
And that led me to the next step of saying, you know something, I'm actually fucking proud of myself.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
And so I called her the next day and I said, you know, I am so grateful to you
Mm.
for giving me the time to reflect on this because there was inner work that I had to do. I
Fantastic.
said, you know what? Here's the deal. I said, I get it. We live in a world that values credibility, right? Credible
Yeah,
information from credible sources. And you know what? I don't fault anybody for that. And you know what? I have busted my ass
you have.
for
Yeah,
20 years,
yeah.
20, 30 years, getting all of these degrees and credentials. Would I throw them away? I don't have a single diploma hanging in this room, and I've got many of them. They are home in a box, but I don't need to hang them to know what I've taken from it. But I thought, why am I going to shame myself for it? This was the path that I took. It
Beautiful.
got me to this point of trusting myself completely, right? And all of us have to get here. Doesn't matter how we get here, just get here,
Yeah.
right? So I looked at my student and I said to her, girl, you be proud of that medical degree that you have.
Yeah.
Now you're going to take it and you're going to use it in the way that spirit intends for you to use that. That's what
Exactly.
we're here to discover together, and that's how we let go of that other layer of shame.
Beautiful. Yep. It's so important. There's
Yes.
so much here around that. It's
Yeah.
a lot. It's
Yes.
big, big medicine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hold on, let me just do a time check. Tell me about, so you have the book, you're running
Yes.
programs, lean in a little bit about the work, anything that you want to share.
Sure. So yeah, I work with people in many capacities, and my mission, I guess, in alignment with this whole idea of rewilding, right? All of this emancipation and really recognizing that, my goal is to get people off of the therapy couch, get people off of pills, get people off the programs, getting people to
Word.
put down the books, put down the workshops, put down the workbooks, and, get back to yourself. So, um, ultimately, what I'm striving to do is take the ancient wisdom, the ancestral medicine that was passed down, the way that our ancestors believed in health and wellness and healing, right? As oneness, as
Yeah.
wholeness, right? And I'm trying to take that and integrate it with modern times. So yes, I do see people for one-on-one sessions, but I also know that we're not intended to heal in private,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're having personal journeys, but it's not private.
Yeah.
So what I've worked really hard in the past few years to cultivate are these collective healing experiences in order to bring people together the same way that our ancestors did, right? Women, for instance, of all ages who gathered around the fire together, right? The
Yeah.
elders, the children, and we pass the legacy, there's that word again,
Yeah.
right? Through the storytelling, the medicine songs, the
Yeah.
stillness practice, the dancing and the movement, right? So what I've been trying to do, and I've created this collective healing experiences that model that. So I bridge in the modern science, everything from somatic experiencing to nervous system regulation, to bioenergetics, to vocal resonance, to
Yeah.
dance therapy, all of that. I weave that in with those ancient shamanic practices, and have created these collective healing experiences for women and men and children. I do this with
Yeah.
children, teens, adults, men, women, a lot of work with moms, because again, their rewilding as a mother,
Word.
our rewilding is our legacy
Yeah.
for our kids and all those who come after. So I do have these private sessions. I have a lot of classes and workshops. I also put together these really powerfully transformative retreats that started as these one-day events a number of years ago and really grew now into 5 and 7-day events, really deep immersions where I model the whole thing after a shamanic vision quest, where we're leaving behind home and we're going out, but we're doing it together and recognizing the connection that we have to each other and to all that is. And we're in nature and we're doing the singing and the dancing and the
Yeah.
storytelling and the silence and learning, how to regulate our nervous systems, learning and understanding how we can live in this modern hyperkinetic world,
Yeah.
but yet also remember, right?
Yeah.
Because we need to remember, right? What we have forgotten, I want to help people remember, because it's integrating the old with the new that is the only way that we're going to find our way in this world. It's the missing link, to
Absolutely.
what's needed. So that's that's how I do this work. My book is my story. My first book is my story. It's called Rewilding: A Woman's Quest to Remember Her Roots, Rekindle Her Instincts, and Reclaim Her Sovereignty.
Mm.
And no one, I never ever had any intention of writing a book, but I would always be an open book and sharing my story from when I was a little girl. And I had a client a number of years ago who was 16 at the time, and she channeled a message from me one night at the end of our session. And when I was getting up to hug her to leave, she said, "Wait." She shook my hands and she looked deep in my eyes. And she said, "Now's the time. The world is waiting to hear your story." The
Mm.
next day I started writing. I took out
Amazing.
every diary and journal I ever wrote in from the age of 10, and got to work. And so
Beautiful.
that's what that book is. And it's a very relatable story, right? Local suburban hockey mom is like, "Hey, there's more for me,"
Yeah.
dealing with chronic, yeah, right? Could be narrowed down to that, it sounds like a Lifetime movie. But, but ultimately, right, it's looking at everything from, the chronic illness that I suffered. I'm not alone. Right now, 85% of
Oh,
Americans are experiencing multiple chronic illness,
yes.
psychological and physiological, for which they are medicated. In children, it's over 50%. So, and I tell people, if you're not startled by those numbers, then you're part of the problem,
Yeah.
right? We've got to be startled by these numbers. So in my book, I address what chronic illness is, the invitation that a state of dis-ease offers us in this whole remembering and forgetting and life and death
Yeah.
process. I show how I again went into the trenches, because I knew that if I wanted to lead and guide from a place of integrity, I had to keep doing the work myself, you know. And the
It's,
book ends at the beginning. It's like, "And now my life can begin," because it's
yeah.
an ongoing journey. It never ends. My learning never ends. My
Yeah.
growth and evolution never ends. And we just have to be wise enough to know that to be the case. We remember until we forget, and we
Yeah.
remember again.
Amen.
Yeah.
It is a big, big dance. And I
Yes.
will
Yes.
say to all of those in the world that are like, "Ooh, I want to be a healer." It is
Yeah.
not for the faint of heart.
Oh
It is
God,
not,
no.
I mean, to walk a it's funny because it is a traditional path essentially for our
Right.
ancestral ways, right? But it's a
Yes.
non-traditional path in our modern society.
Right. Right.
So to walk a path that is not very well paved and to
Right.
be like moving the way in which we are doing this,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be like, yes. It's more like, oh, sometimes like, do
I
I
had no idea what I was signing up for.
totally have no
But
idea every
no idea.
day.
No, the level of responsibility, and again, it's a responsibility first and foremost to yourself to do
That's,
work,
yeah,
to stand in integrity, to go to the places that scare you in order to be able to offer that wisdom to somebody else. It is such a profound responsibility that one
it
can never
is.
ever take lightly.
No. And as you said, it really is about the self responsibility first. And we get to see every day all the ways in which we're still not being accountable and
Right.
showing up in that. And it's like all these little blind spots,
Yep.
but also we can't open and access everything at the same time because then we'll be overwhelmed and not be able to navigate it and move through the dance. So
Yep.
it's like, okay,
Yep.
food, lymphatic,
Yeah.
connection. I mean, like all the different things. It's like, ah,
Right.
okay,
Yeah. All the things, right?
all
And
the things.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
big. It's
It is
really
big.
enormous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is
But
why, it feels so good to be here with you, sister,
yeah,
because um, it is a lot. And sometimes it certainly does feel that like that path of the lone wolf, right?
yeah, for sure.
But when we connect in these ways and we have these conscious conversations
Yeah.
and we remember why we're here, what we came here to do, and that we're not alone in doing it,
Yeah.
that's everything. So,
Thank
um,
you.
yeah, I can't thank you enough for having this space, and just
Thank
really
you.
creating an opportunity for these conscious conversations to take place.
Thank you,
It's
Mama.
powerful.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels really, really nourishing and important. And I'm still like unraveling why it wants to be done. You
Yeah.
know, like but as you said, it is this conscious connection. It is so affirming.
Yes.
I'm very Italian right now with my hands. How about
Yes, me too. Me too. Me
it is, it's
too.
very affirming and we learn so much from one another and it's just very activational. I love
Absolutely.
activating and being activated and being like, oh, that next piece. And
Yeah.
it's so profound how each one of us is given strands of medicine. And I mean, essentially, how each one of us is holding this light in our DNA in different ways
Right.
that
Right.
contribute to a field of coherency and really
Yeah.
delivers back and forth this, yeah,
Yes.
magic.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is magic, and it's comforting because of how far away from that we've gotten, where we're in
Yeah.
a world now where there's so much competition, especially between women.
Yeah.
Women have forgotten the sisterhood. So
Yeah.
to come together, I mean, men need this as well. It's the brotherhood,
Absolutely.
but we need to be in the tribe, in tribe again, in conscious
Yeah.
connection with one another. It really is the missing piece to this wholeness that we call, health and wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Mama. Well, I'm going to list all of your deets, of course, so that everybody can get in
Thank
touch with
you.
you,
Thank you.
whoever's called to work with you. And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And I hope that it was medicinal for you and that you receive whatever you need from today. And I certainly received. So thank you, Kristi, for joining us. Thank you for
I
your
did as
wisdom and your
well.
heart. And until next time, thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.